employees will determine where they fit and where they don't fit based on the level of integrity of the leader.
Say that one again. Ooh. Welcome to the Impact Effect podcast. As always, I am fired up, and we've got a repeat guest today. One of my favorite people in the world, leadership expert, amazing mom, owns multiple businesses, changes the lives of people, helps them get to the level they need to, find the clarity. I've got Tammy Fitzpatrick in the studio. And when I say studio, we are live here at Music City Work Club at the Honey Pod Studio. If you need some studio space, you're flying into Nashville. Heck, I met someone the other day and they booked it an hour after seeing this amazing space. Let us know. Check out bookhoneypod.com. We want to show you. We want to bring you in. We want to get you connected here in Nashville. So, as always, Impact Effect podcast style, I ask one two-parted question. Tammy, how do you define impact, and how are you showing up in the world and providing impact today?
Ooh, thank you, Jim. I appreciate you having me here today. Always exciting to be a part of your sphere and an opportunity to chat with you directly. Impact. Such a powerful word that describes so much of what's happening in the world around us that we don't always think intentionally about what that looks like. And so I think for me, impact is intentionality. And I've spoke with you about intentionality on multiple occasions. But for me, it's really being intentional about how we show up every single day and thinking about the power of our presence, the power of our words, and the power of how we show up in the world around us.
The power of our presence. Goosebumps.
Yeah, we don't often think about that we can show up and be in a space without ever even saying a word. And there's so much power in just being available to others.
The keynote I did this week, I was talking about charisma, and I kind of gave my definition, the ability to influence with energy and love.
Yeah.
That's what I believe charisma to be. And as you were saying, like presence, that energy transfer, you don't have to actually say anything to show up with charisma.
Yeah.
Because as long as you bring the right energy, as long as you bring the wholehearted approach to, I want to serve, or I want to help, or I want to be better, or I want to, impact others,
Yeah.
people can feel that.
They can.
Have you ever been in a meeting or a coffee or a situation where you might not have known the person, but you just feel better after you talk to them?
Oh, absolutely. There's I don't know if I want to use the word aura that comes, but that presence is felt. And sometimes they feel warm, or sometimes they feel cool. And you can feel that before they ever even open their mouth. You can read their body language. You can see how they're showing up in the world. You can oftentimes even read how they're feeling about themselves on any of those given days. Is how they're able to pour into others is from a full cup from themselves.
When you connect with someone, you feel those things. What are some things that you notice? You mentioned body language. You mentioned presence. Like, how do you pick up on that stuff?
I'm trained as an organizational psychologist, and one of my kind of special skills is reading the room and really having an understanding of body language, presence, and how they're showing up in any of those spaces. So for me, I'm a keen observer, and I'm paying attention to all those little details. And even when working with my clients, I'm in those spaces with them where they're allowed to be real, sometimes very, very vulnerable. We can pick up on some of those internal details that is telling me a whole lot more than what's coming out of their mouth.
You are absolutely amazing at this. I do believe this is one of your gifts, to just create a scenario or a situation where people can open up. You can go deep with people. You can tell the truth to Tammy. How do you do that? Like, how do you get these clients to tell you the truth so then you can actually help them at the highest level, so they're living up to their capacity?
Yeah. Part of that's a whole lot of training over a lot of years of education, but also it's just really creating that safe space and allowing people to be heard. We're in a world where people don't feel validated, and they don't often feel accepted for who they authentically are, and they don't feel safe where they can speak their true authentic self. And so for me, it's through training that I've had, but also years and years of experience of understanding how to pull those pieces out and creating that safe environment where they can feel vulnerable and we can have some really honest heart-to-heart conversations.
Do you think that's a skill that's important for you to transfer to those leaders you work with so they can provide that to their team?
It's modeling the appropriate behavior. And so really having an idea, because I work with C-suite executives, to demonstrate with them what's the possibility. I love the power of possibility, and I speak about that quite frequently, but showing them and demonstrating the type of behavior that I'm going to be expecting of them, really helping them understand how to utilize the skills. So it's not just teaching them in the moment how to lead their business, but also how to lead other people.
Of course. Ooh, through modeling. I love that. I love that. Interesting enough, I've never heard that term modeling. Like, I get it. I understand it. How do you do that? Can you walk us maybe through an example or maybe a past client that you've had where, like, you went in the room, they might have had the wall up, you modeled how to break that down, and then maybe something that they've done with that knowledge?
Absolutely. So I want to pull that back just a little bit before I dig into a client experience. And I know, Jim, you have two beautiful young children, and I know that every single day those little kids they're looking and they're watching and they're observing and they're seeing every single thing that you do. They're seeing the way that you eat at the dinner table. They're watching the way that you speak to your wife. They're watching the way that you respond to them, how you respond to stress. Not to put any pressure on you, right? But you know that they're watching.
It's the truth.
They're watching every single detail. And I've got 4 kids of my own. And one of the most awakening moments as a parent was always like, that was me coming out of their mouth. And I just heard my own words come out of their mouth. And sometimes it can be a little shameful, right? Like, oh gosh, especially when they're not the best words, which sometimes happens. And so I learned that there's that modeling piece that happens with our children. That's probably the clearest and easiest example of think of how we show up with them every single day and know that they're watching. The exact same thing happens in companies where they're watching the leader. They're looking to see how they're responding. They're looking to see if they are showing up at the office on time, how they're answering the phone, how they're responding to clients. They're going to mirror everything that they see is being modeled in front of them. So for me, it's when I'm working with my clients, I have to be modeling that behavior from the moment I engage with them. And also, quite honestly, calling them out on their crap and telling them that may have worked in the past, but that level of leadership is not going to get you to where you want to go moving forward. And what this next level of leadership is going to require of you is that you are acting in this manner. You're leading in this manner. You're demonstrating the appropriate behaviors in this manner because you want all of your people within your organization to follow your lead. And that takes a strong leader to step into that and say, oh, wow. I can't call them out on the carpet if I'm not doing the same behavior myself. And so really setting the example. And so with my clients, it's walking them through. Oftentimes we call it the way, and we link that to their company. And so we would say maybe the impact way could be an easy way to link in for you. And we'll very clearly define acceptable behaviors, unacceptable behaviors. And with some leaders, we got to call them out on their crap. We have to say, you cannot do this. You have to show up in this way. But we set that example at the top, and then we work very intently to identify what those key components are, oftentimes based on their values and what they want to be demonstrating within the organization. And then we roll that out across every level with every employee.
I love that. I love that. I was thinking back as you were saying this, someone I worked with, and proximity is power, I believe.
Absolutely.
And it sounds a lot aligned with your approach of that modeling. But there was a point where I was around a leader that didn't have integrity of their word.
Oh.
And what that started for me to do is to bring down my integrity. Like, oh, they say they're going to do something and they don't do it. Well, it's fine if someone else on the team says something and they don't do it.
Yeah.
And then it was me. I was like, oh, it's late. It's Friday. I said I'd have that report by, 10 o'clock at night. It's 9:30. Well, that person says stuff and doesn't do it. Maybe I can just do it tomorrow.
It doesn't matter.
And I'm like, but, luckily enough, I caught myself. I'm like, no, their integrity is theirs. and my integrity is mine, my word is bond. I say it, I do it. And I'll be the first to say, hey, I thought this, or I had this information and it's changed. And I'm okay to, after I draw that line in the sand, erase it and draw a new one, because I did acquire new information. I did have a different perspective or a different opinion on something.
Yeah.
But it's so important to understand that level of modeling and the way. I like the impact way. I like that. I would have to use that, Sammy.
Right? And just defining what's appropriate for you based on your value set. And you gave a perfect example where it's a trickle effect, where all of a sudden the leader's not living by their word. They're not delivering what they said they were going to deliver. And what we oftentimes see is very clearly employees will determine where they fit and where they don't fit based on the level of integrity of the leader.
Ooh. Say that one again. Ooh.
Employees will very quickly determine where they fit and where they don't fit within an organization based on the integrity of the leader. I've talked with a lot of individuals over the years that have said, I could no longer work with someone who. And the who part was based on the values and the integrity of the person at the top.
It's interesting to separate those two from not so much a name, but so much the action of what they've done, or in some cases, what they didn't do.
Oh, yeah.
That's huge.
It's oftentimes not so much of what they do, it's what they don't do, right? That they don't lead, they don't set the example, they're not holding people accountable, they're not showing up. It all is, I think the don't do's outweigh oftentimes the do-do's.
Totally. We had Jensen Buck. He's a musician on the podcast, and he's writing a book, and it's what not to do. The whole book is written around that fact, because he's like, if I can teach people what not to do from my screw ups or mess ups or decisions, I feel like it's going to be received. At least, like, that stove is hot now.
Yeah.
Don't touch it, rather than like, hey, go over here and do this.
Well, and I think I like to give a lot of people the benefit of the doubt. They are not always fully aware of their actions and the impact of those actions on others. So they think it's okay. And it's the nature of the beast, right? They've gotten away with it. And then it becomes like you speed, and then you get away with speeding, and then speeding becomes your norm. And then till maybe you get caught, and then perhaps.
Have you been in the passenger driver's seat with me or something?
Bring you out at all. But you can see how that happens, right? It's the value of consequences. And our kids are the same way. If there's no consequences, guess what? They're going to push the limit to get away with what they can. And unfortunately, leaders, even at the top of some of the biggest organizations, have those same very natural human behaviors.
Wow. You're so right. So right. How would you advise someone who may not be leading or modeling right now, and they want to work with you, they want to be that person? Could you share maybe a couple nuggets on how you'd advise them, or what you're, how you're getting in the trenches with them?
We're rolling up the sleeves and having really honest conversations. When you do this, this is what happens. And it's an awareness piece. And so oftentimes in the trenches, I'm having direct conversations with them, because they're not going to say, hey, I'm an idiot at work, or, oh, I mess up every single day. They're usually not going to say that. They're going to say, here are the symptoms that I'm seeing within the organization. And for me, one of my, I like to say, zone of geniuses, and where I really have a lot of power in my space, is pattern recognition. So going into these organizations, and I hear the leaders say, here are the problems. And the problems are just a symptom level of something that's happening within their system. And so I can recognize those patterns and really see, based on what they say is happening, peeling the layers of that onion back further and further and further, and getting down to what's broken within the system. And then asking them the right questions. So the power of asking the right questions for them increases their level of awareness as to how they might be directly correlated to some of the issues and the challenges that they're facing. And then guiding them, saying, well, what if we try it this way instead? How about next time you have to have that difficult conversation, you lead it this way? And really giving them, sometimes it's as much as a script and guidelines to help them navigate a different level of leadership they haven't stepped to before.
And a lot of this work that you're doing, this is one-on-one with an executive team?
Absolutely. Yep.
Gotcha.
So going in, working with the C-suites or the owners and really that executive team, because I believe if we can navigate it at the top, we can solve all the problems down below. And looking at it from a systemic issue and really diagnosing their system. And so that's where I think my approach is just a little bit different, is I'm not going in and treating those individual symptoms, and really speaking to the systems that are happening and uncovering how the organization is functioning, what they need to be focusing on, and then how do they resolve the issues that they're having. Oftentimes they know there's issues, but they have absolutely no idea how to solve for them. So from a system level, we can identify those pain points and then really clearly help them navigate success moving forward.
So if you know you have some problems but don't know how to solve them, I think Tammy is the next phone call y'all need to make, because this makes so much sense to me. Like I can see you peeling back the onion. I can see you, and I can see why you're so good at it, right? Because
Thank you.
you do ask such amazing questions, and you do it with such a level of elegance. I think that's important as you navigate a new client or a new relationship. But then also having that level of aggressiveness to call you out and say, hey, that's incorrect, or hey, that's this issue, and whatnot. Like, you need that balance, and I feel like you can sway back and forth to have that total balance.
That's the very interesting and sometimes challenging part of the role, is having those conversations to be able to call somebody out on their crap and doing it in a way that you don't feel threatened. We're not going to put your defenses up. You're not going to feel attacked, but let's have a really honest conversation. And so most of my clients, they have to be ready to do the work. And that's who my true clients are the individuals that are coming forward and really want to do the work to get their organization to the next level. Some of them are really, it's revenue. I mean, at the end of the day, it's driving revenue. If we're not making money, then we're not in business and we're not meeting what we're being held accountable to within our work role. So how do we drive revenue so that you feel really good about the position that you're in? So it's elevating those leaders in a powerful way to get them prepared to really drill in on what's going to make the difference for them. And oftentimes they're just fighting fires. There's a lot going on in their business every single day, and they don't know how to focus their energies. So we can really drill down to say, okay, we're not going to focus on this fire today. We have something blazing and burning over here that's immediately drawing our attention. So through diagnostics, we can see those kind of heat maps of what's going on within the organization, so they know how to focus those energies. And then they come in a little more calmer, because you've all been around those leaders or those peoples that are like, oh, crap. Like, I'm being pulled in 27 different directions today. And then they get home at the end of the day and they're not worth a crap for their families. They're drained, they're exhausted, their business is taking every ounce of life out of them, and they don't have anything left for their personal life because they don't know how to drive those energies during the day. So if we can balance their energies based on where they really need to focus their attention within the business on a day-to-day basis, they go home more human to their family and more ready to serve their communities and their kids or whatever it might be, because they feel the balance during the day.
It's almost like you don't know how big of a problem it can be until you work with the right person, until they actually open up your eyes to the fact that this one thing or this one strategy that's not working is actually affecting everything in your life. And I've been there, you know. Tell us about a client of yours that knows they have a problem, but you really had to get them to realize it. Like, have you had a client where they hire you for a reason and then they push back? Like,
Yeah.
Share maybe a story like that. I want to get into the juice here, because
the juicy gossip stuff.
Because this is the stuff where, and you don't have to name names or anything, but this is the stuff where I think we're going to speak to most of the audience today, where they know that they need to change, and they know that they need to get a coach or a leader. They know that they need to hire Tammy, but they come in, or they've done this before, they've hired someone and they've pushed back. They've really had those barriers up. Have you faced that? Have you faced something similar?
Unfortunately, every day. Most of my clients have what I call kind of consultant or advising fatigue. They've been there, they've done that. They hired this consultant to help them with do personality testing and help the team work together better. They might have had a consultant come in that did leadership development. They might have had somebody come in and help them in some different siloed areas of their business. That happens all the time. And those individuals provide an amazing service, and they're much needed in their space. But they're still not solving the issues because we haven't looked at it from kind of a holistic perspective. And so for me, I go in and oftentimes they'll say, we've done this before. We spent $60,000 last year trying to solve for this. We still don't have this issue. So they're coming to me out of desperation and maybe some new renewed budget of they're trying to figure out what they could possibly do. Let's bring in another consultant. Let's bring in somebody else to try to solve for this. And they will oftentimes say to me after we've run the diagnostics, I've never looked at my business this way.
Let's go. Tell us more. Tell us more.
I've been able to see the inner depths of what's happening across every component of my business. So we're looking across 50 plus facets of the organization to really understand what's going on here. Oftentimes, a lot of my clients, they're new to their role. So it might have been a CEO that's brought in to a brand new organization and they're walking in blindly. In the past, they do walkabouts. They'll go around and try to ask a lot of questions to see if they could figure out what was happening within the organization before they make their kind of strategic change plan moving forward. Very, very standard process for CEOs coming in. My process gets that narrowed down and drilled down to them in less than 45 days. And so it's that speed of execution. But what I often find is, and this to answer your question, is the leaders are like, not my problem. I inherited this problem. I inherited this company. I inherited this role. This is a mess. This team isn't communicating. They're not meeting goals and objectives. We haven't hit our revenue benchmark in 3 years. That's why I'm the turnaround guy.
Yep.
They brought this CEO in to turn this company around. And so a lot of times it's not personal ownership. It's somebody else's problem. And so we have to diagnose the system. We have to help inform them of what's happening and then help them see their role in that. There's a lot of egos at the C-suite level. They've worked hard, they've accomplished a lot, and they're very proud of those accomplishments, which is why I love to get in the spaces with them. They're very powerful, intelligent, experienced folks that have accomplished a lot within their career in various organizations. And having the conversations with them to be able to say, okay, that's great. And what role do you play in this to really turn it around? And their egos and their confidence will get in the way oftentimes in their ability to see the reality of how they need to show up in a space that they're an outsider in. I had a particular client last year. They're like, oh, it's not me, it's them. I inherited this mess and I have to figure out how to solve it, but they still can't see how their role and how they've shown up and how their approach is not going to fit the culture they've just inherited. Whether they've inherited or not, we've got to do a lot of work to get them prepared to step into that space. So pulling that back and having them really accept ownership in how they show up and how that might look different than how they found success in a previous organization is sometimes a difficult conversation.
Wow. Wow. No, that makes so much sense as I think back of transitioning through different businesses and working with different leadership. One, I've experienced it that way. So someone has come in at a CEO level. I've literally had someone, work side by side and then tell me that they're the CEO a couple weeks later. Right.
Yeah.
And I understand it. I don't know how I feel about that. Meaning this is who I'm supposed to respect, but you are acting like a supervisor and now you're the CEO. How can I respect you when I feel that I just got some tomfoolery happening?
Yeah.
So I understand it. I just don't know how I would perceive it again if it happened today. But I've also been on the side where I've come in and I've pushed those blames, right? I've said, well, the other guy was here before and he did this and did that, rather than seeking that positivity, that positive impact of this is what it is. This is baseline. What is Jim and Jim's team going to do to get back up to the standards of service, of profitability, of revenue? I think that's just so important to identify and to have that mindset change of stop doing this and start doing this. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
How am I going to show up? How am I going to help? And I think you hit on something so key. What might have worked in your previous career, what might have worked in your previous organization, your previous industry, right? Because as we know, there's a lot of transferable skills as a CEO, but there's also industry knowledge. There's industry change. There's different things that occur in different silos. So understanding and owning the fact that, hey, this is the strategy I did at the last company. This is the strategy that I'm going to roll out. This strategy isn't working, or this strategy isn't going to work on this new information that I've acquired. And it's so cool that you pull that out of people and you bring them into that world of, hey, this is the objective. This is the goal. This may not work. Let's try this. Or you think it's working. You think you're not the problem. Let's identify some of those things and get some vulnerable conversations going.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. New CEO comes in, things aren't working. He's got pride, he's got ego, or she's got pride, she's got ego. And they may not want the other teammates to know that their new strategy isn't working because they're maybe thinking they're on the chopping block if it doesn't. How do you get those? Like, do you take them in a different room where it's just one-on-one? Like, I'm picturing this and I'm like, it all makes so much sense. I see the impact, but I'm like, what would Jim do in that situation?
Yeah.
Like,
It's interesting that you call that out. I love that you recognize that. It's the power of positioning. And so that is one of the very first conversations I have with anyone that hires me is, how are we positioning this within the organization so that we have the highest level of success? Because if we come in and you're like, oh, the new guy's coming in, he's got this consultant, she's going to be, looking behind the hood, she's going to be revealing stuff. I'm already apprehensive. I don't trust the new guy. I'm not sure if my job is going to be stable. What is this going to mean for me long term? Am I going to participate and be vulnerable and share information about this new guy that I don't like? I mean, sometimes I've heard employees, they're very vocal and they're not afraid to be vocal, but most of them are in a fear response. And so they don't feel safe and they don't trust the process. And so we have to position the assessment in such a way that it's an opportunity for us to elevate within our own individual positions so that we have the comfort and the confidence that this is a good fit for us. And so we do it in such a way where it's a growth exercise for everyone that's involved. And I don't have a naughty list. I like to talk about the naughty list because through these assessments, it reveals a lot of stuff. But it's not the naughty list. Jim's not going to be on the naughty list because he's not 100% bought into the new CEO. Names are anonymous. I protect those things because I have to make sure if we're elevating this work and we're really accomplishing the goals of our time together, everybody has to feel safe. And so how do we create that safe space for everyone? And that goes back to positioning of the way that the diagnostics are run, the way that the feedback and all comes down to communication.
It's so important. As you're saying that, I'm thinking back of the first survey that I was asked to take at a director level, and the vice president was upset because like only 30 out of 1,800 people did the survey. And you hit it. You were exactly correct, Tammy. Like, it was positioned so poorly that you felt that if you said the truth, or if you even filled the thing out, lied, that there would be some type of conversation that's going to position you in a negative way, a negative light. And that stems from that C-suite leadership where we called this gentleman our fearless leader because, it wasn't so much like, hey, we're going to go try this new thing and this level of leadership and we're going to take risk and I'm going to build the right team. But it was more so of like, you better do it right or he'll fire you. And he doesn't care because he's fired his cousin. He's fired, people that are super connected to his family. There's a point where it was like, hey, Jim, I don't think you should have a LinkedIn. It's like, I'm not filling out this survey. I was just told I can't even have a LinkedIn because of the fear that you're bringing to the role, to the position. Now, my audience knows me. Do you think I'd listen to that? Do you think I didn't have a LinkedIn? No, go check my LinkedIn. There's like 11,000 connections because I just never played to that game. You're going to fire me over a LinkedIn. Look at the revenue. Look at the growth. Look at all the states I've brought the company to. Not so much me, but the team I built.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's so important. Talk to me a little bit. I know you offer some different services too. You've got the one-on-one stuff, the leadership. Talk to me a little bit about how else you positively impact the world through through leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to back up for just a moment and I want to speak to something. If only 33 people out of however many filled out that survey, that tells me something that's going on within the organization. And I don't even need those survey results to know what's happening very clearly within the organization. So it's amazing the power of people not even filling out a survey, the insight that's captured through that.
What that actually tells you about how the organization's run.
And the leader.
And the leader
tells us a lot. Even no surveys tell us a whole lot.
Tammy just needs a little bit of information and she's going to have a full diagnostic on you and your business.
Yeah. So services wise, there's a lot of different things, but mainly it's diagnostic work. So the very first thing that I do is I want to know what's going on. If you come and you tell me your knee hurts, we got to really understand, why is your knee hurting? And we do the same thing within organizations, is understanding diagnostically and really peeling back and understanding the systems that are presenting challenges for you. And we do that from a holistic perspective. So we're kind of, it's a whole body experience where we're really looking at strategy, implementation, how they're using resources, the people component of that, how aligned the leadership is at the top, how ready the organization is to change or drive revenue moving forward. So that diagnostic is really the key for me to understand the organization. I can't provide recommendations, advice, guidelines for you if I have really no true understanding of how every system within your organization is working. So that holistic diagnostic is really the benchmark of everything that I do. Then from there, it's executive execution. So how do we take that? This is what you've got. This is what it looks like. Here's your goals for next year. All my clients are driving revenue. So it's a revenue readiness system to really get to the next level. And so then what do we need to do there? What's your goals? I've got a current client that's trying to get to 310 million at the end of 2026. Those are big, audacious goals for them. They're driving everything within their organization as a fine-tuned system to get to that benchmark. That number, 310, is what every single C-suite executive has in their brain with every decision that they make every single day when they show up to work. Why? Because we built the system to support those goals to help them get there. And so that's kind of the beauty. Then everyone understands their role and what's the goal. If you walk within an organization, can you ask your C-suite, what is your number one goal this year? Do they know? My guess is they don't. They're going to each have department goals. They're going to have specific things, but they don't know. Do they know they're 310 when they show up every single day? Because when you know you're 310, you understand what's a fire and what's a little smolder, what's a blaze. You've got to put this out immediately today because you've got 310 emboldened on your brain. And every decision every day is going to drive you getting to 310. So my work is helping you figure out what's your 310 and then getting every executive within the organization in tune to what that looks like and what their role is to get there. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is recalibrate.
Real quick.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, rewind and listen to what she just said. It's so important. And it doesn't matter if you're at this level, running it, owning it, it doesn't matter. The whole team needs to understand, because that right there is, I think, one of the most powerful things I've heard in a long time, that everybody needs to understand the most important goal. They need to be able to regurgitate it, and they need to make decisions based on that, right? And I love the little smolder compared to the blaze. Like, why am I spending time on this when that thing actually isn't correlating to getting to that goal? And maybe there isn't a blaze at this time, but I still don't want to spend my time on a smolder.
Yeah.
Like,
and
that one hit me. Like I'm implementing that. Chase, who's running the studio today. We're gonna talk about this one after this.
What's
man.
your 310? What is it? But here's the other thing. When I talk to leaders, they're all, a large percentage of them are exhausted. They're overwhelmed. They can't admit it. They're not going to admit it outside of a safe space, but they are being pulled I'm being pulled in a million different directions. How's your week? Oh, wow. And they'll just start drilling through all the nonsense that they had to deal with every single day. And they're so stuck in their business that they can't work on their business. When you have your 310, you know exactly how you need to show up every single day and what's worth your effort and your time and your energy. So we align all of that. So it's clear for you to understand what you need to be doing when you show up every day. And then the leaders are then responsible for how they're communicating that information to every level within the organization and every employee, so they understand how they need to show up. What's their 310?
Do you advise any rhythms or any like sequence? Like if
Yep.
there's a team meeting, everybody goes around and says the goal until everybody can regurgitate. Like, is there any little tactical things you can share about how to make sure the team is consistent around that? I remember I worked for an organization and they really were upset that no one understood the mission. So every meeting, someone had to regurgitate the mission. And if they didn't or stumbled through it, then they had to like send an email and write it every morning until the next meeting until they got it. Not saying I agree totally with that, but is there any little tips and tricks on how to get that rhythm into place that you've worked with people on?
Yeah, part of the work with my clients is getting the structure. So we understand the system, we understand where we're going, and then the structure that supports that system. It's very nuanced into meetings, death by meetings. It's a great Pat Lencioni book, but really thinking about what is the value of a meeting and what do we really need to be moving. So we're focusing all the energies, and a lot of that is meeting management. It's helping the team understand what is this meeting, what do we need to accomplish, and then how do we communicate that information moving forward. So it's the structure and the discipline behind that structure, and then the communication that falls from there.
Tammy Fitzpatrick, just always blowing my mind,
Yeah.
always. Thanks for being here. Is there anything else that you want to share around what you're doing, how you're helping folks before we wrap up today?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you allowing me an opportunity to come out. Always a pleasure to be with you. The biggest thing I want leaders to think about is an opportunity to have a clear vision moving forward, and really aligning that vision and getting your team to support that vision moving forward. And so it's not, it's a vulnerable thing to like raise a flag and say, I need help, or I'm not sure, because we're big and we're strong and we're in a powerful position. And there's a lot of vulnerability, internal vulnerability in those positions. They can't come home and speak to their spouse. Their spouse doesn't understand. They can't admit to their team. They don't really know exactly what they need to be doing. And so to have that safe space to really be able to dive in and get the direction and support that they need, that's what I'll offer.
Boom. Tammy Fitzpatrick. If you're not following her, check her out. She is absolutely crushing it, changing people's lives, organizations, allowing people to live to their full capacity and get to those big goals that they're seeking. Thanks again, Tammy.
Thanks, Jim.